navigation, or to the marine and coastal environments when located in our territory or exclusive economic zone. The Convention came into force in 2015, and to date, out of 175 member states of the IMO, 57 states have acceded to the said Convention. As matters stand today for our country, I am informed that the Republic of Mauritius has not yet acceded to the Nairobi Convention for the removal of wrecks. The challenge to accede to the Convention is that the existing provisions of the Merchant Shipping Act allows the registered owner of the shipwreck to put a cap on the quantum of expenses that he would incur or that could be ultimately recovered from him in the event that the removal operation is done by the government. This is because the limits of liability under the Nairobi Convention is linked to the liability regime provided for under the International Convention on Limitation of Liability on Maritime Claims 1976. In order to ensure that the registered owner of a wreck is made to shoulder the full financial responsibility of the wreck removal, the existing provisions of the Merchant Shipping Act need to be reviewed. However, there is beforehand a need to sort out the diplomatic issue of updating the country's international commitments under the LLMC, which has already been acceded to and is in force. My ministry is conscious that due to climate change, navigation is becoming more hazardous with higher risk of shipwrecks in its wake. For this reason, the accession to the Nairobi Convention is being seriously considered. The main challenge is to find an appropriate legal and diplomatic remedy which would be in the interest of Mauritius and ensuring that there is no loophole for owners of wrecks to escape or diminish their liability. I'm informed that the concerned officers of my ministry, along with officers of the Attorney General's office, are attending to this matter. I have also taken note that the Director of Shipping is responsible for taking up this matter with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Regional Integration and International Trade, and this is to be done without any further delay. Once this matter is cleared, the accession process will be initiated. Meanwhile, I'm also informed that draft legislation has already been prepared to give effect to the Nairobi Convention as soon as the ratification process is completed. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Nairobi Convention is a modern international instrument reflecting best international practices as far as dealing with wreck removal is concerned. The said convention will surely give additional protection to the state of Mauritius as a coastal state and strengthen further the existing legal framework on wreck removal. Once the administrative and legal issues are cleared, my ministry will ensure that Mauritius becomes party to the Nairobi Convention.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the Honourable Minister for the answer that you are considering signing this convention. But would the Honourable Minister agree that it does not preclude your ministry to come forward with draft legislation with regards to amending the Merchant Shipping Act, but in the meantime, you can adhere to signing this Nairobi Convention, because it goes in line with the current international practice for coastal states to sign this Nairobi Convention, which is a further protection for coastal states.
Mr. Speaker, I take good note of the suggestion of the Honourable Member, which are obviously most welcome, and I will refer them to the Attorney General Office to look into this possibility legal issues.
And would the Honourable Minister also consider, with regards to the Limitation Convention of 1976, this also is outdated because we've got the Limitation Convention of 1996, which will enable states to gain maximum compensation if same is adhered to. Will the Honourable Minister consider amending the law to bring into operation the 1996 Convention on Limitation?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir. As rightly pointed out by the Honourable Member, it is possible for states to remove the limit of liability for removal of wrecks by way of reservation, and we're looking into that possibility also.
One last, Mr. Speaker, sir, thank you. With regards to the powers vested upon the Director of Shipping, as per the Merchant Shipping Act, Section 132, empowers him to act as the receiver of wreck. In that respect, we have got a vessel, a Mauritian flag vessel, Tresta Star, which has been declared a wreck near Réunion Island. What actions have been taken with regards to this problematic issue of the wreck being a Mauritian flag vessel? What actions have been initiated by the receiver of wreck in that particular case?
Mr. Speaker, sir, in fact, the Director of Shipping, as receiver of wrecks, is empowered with the Merchant Shipping Act to take necessary action where wrecks to be raised and removed in the eventuality of any default on the part of owners. With regard to Tresta Star being given that it is a Mauritian flag vessel, in fact, we are working in hand with the Réunion French authorities, and up to now, I think they have up to 26 of this month to forward their wreck removal plan. That means the PNI, the owner and PNI have to submit their wreck removal plan. There is a quite close follow-up. As regard whatever there was polluted on that vessel, all have been removed, salvaged by the salvage company appointed by the owner. Now, as a removal wreck, we're waiting the removal plan.
Honorable Ganga Bosad.
348.
Mr. Speaker, sir, in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, I wish to inform the House that a testing team was constituted by my ministry in collaboration with the Ministry of Health and Wellness to conduct rapid antigen tests on students upon detection of a positive case within the classroom and to advise schools on infection prevention and control protocols. The team of 91 trainee nurses followed a training program on rapid antigen testing and infection prevention and control, which was organized by the Ministry of Health and Wellness in collaboration with the World Health Organization. They have been clustered in 31 education testing teams and posted as from the 10th of April 2022 in 28 educational institutions, which acted as education testing team base. Mr. Speaker, sir, with regard to Part A of the question, I'm informed that 40,920 rapid antigen tests have been carried out since the start of the testing exercise from the 10th February 2022 up to the 15th April 2022. And a total of 1,505 students have been tested positive in the pre-primary, primary, secondary, and SEN institutions, special education needs institutions. With regard to Part C of the question, I wish to inform the House that the education testing team will continue their assignment until further notice.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. We commend the idea of setting up the testing team for the welfare and safety of our school-going kids. Mr. Speaker, sir, may I ask the Honourable Minister whether any evaluation or appraisal of the work done by the testing team has been carried out with a view to improving its efficiency? Because at now, Honourable Minister, the time gap before the testing team actually responds to requests made by the school is lengthy. Will the Honourable Minister see to it that the response time can be faster?
Mr. Speaker, sir, in fact, initially the testing was done on all the students within the classroom. But following the protocol from the Ministry of Health, we have come down to the students around the person who is detected positive, and therefore the number has gone down, the number of tests carried out. However, I must say that if initially there was a delay because there was some time of adaptation required for the team to start working, this has, towards the end of the term, we've noted that the time taken was very much reduced.
Sir, may I request the Honourable Minister to inform the House about the scheme of service of the members of the testing team. May we know, for example, whether they report to Ministry of Health or Ministry of Education?
Mr. Speaker, sir, they've got to report to the Ministry of Health and to the Ministry of Education as well. And if I can even give the duties of the testing team. So the testing team comprises a team leader who oversees the collection of the test samples, distributes the collection kits and swabs, serves as a point of contact for communication, oversees the site setup and enforces test procedures, ensures that students are tested on the correct days, because we started having the test on the first day and then the third day, and eventually we came to the test being carried out solely on the third day. And they're responsible to register the test takers, ensure that that consent has been signed by parents prior to the testing, explain the testing results, logs entries and test results, number of tests used, and full details of positive results. And then you have a test administrator who provides instruction on the rapid antigen test, administers the test, and performs test analysis on sample. They also have the responsibility of disposing the testing kits in collection bins.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Will the Honourable Minister inform the House, because initially we know the testing team is for kids, will the testing team in the future, in the short term or long term, carry out tests for teaching and non-teaching staff as well?
Mr. Speaker, sir, initially, as mentioned by the Honourable Member, the testing team was meant solely for the students, but whenever the exposure of a teacher to the student exceeds the 2 hours that has been prescribed by the Minister of Health, the test can be carried out. We are very positive for that.
Question. Honourable Minister, in the short term or long term, is the Ministry planning to review the scheme of service of the testing team so that they carry out other health-related exercises, for example, in the prevention of chronic diseases or contamination?
Mr. Speaker, sir, in my initial answer, I had mentioned that they were responsible for carrying out the tests, but also to help the schools to set up the infection prevention protocols. They've been trained for that as well.
The table has been advised that PQ B389, B410, B424, B432 have been withdrawn. Next question.
B349.
Mr. Speaker, sir, at our sitting of the 9th of November 2021, Honorable Mrs. Fazilat Jiwa-Doryao, Minister of Social Integration, Social Security and National Solidarity, in reply to parliamentary question B1016, informs the House that further to the announcement of the budgetary measure 2021-2022 to make public beaches accessible to persons with disabilities, the Beach Authority had initiated the necessary actions. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Beach Authority, which falls under the purview of my ministry, is mandated to ensure proper control of management of public beaches in Mauritius and Rodrigues. The Beach Authority has been providing various amenities at those public beaches, along with cleaning thereat. The various amenities include toilet blocks, parking areas, lighting, benches, picnic tables, amongst others. Presently, there are 32 toilet blocks at public beaches which are equipped with a disabled unit. And there are disabled-friendly access leading from the parking area to the beach frontage at 6 public beaches, namely Montchoisy, La Cuvette, Saint-Félix, Bellemare, Bain-Bœuf, and Blue Bay public beaches. It is to be recalled that in the context of the implementation of the phase 1 of the beach management plan at 4 public beaches, namely Montchoisy, Ficanflac, Bellemare, and La Prairie, the following amenities have also been designed and will be put in place thereat to facilitate access to persons with disabilities. Disabled-friendly picnic tables, disabled-friendly open shower, disabled-friendly toilet blocks, and reserved parking slots for persons with disabilities. Mr. Speaker, sir, in line with the budgetary measure in respect of persons with disabilities, the Beach Authority is currently working in close collaboration with the Ministry of Social Integration, Social Security and National Solidarity NGOs, and other community stakeholders on a project to provide access to the sea, to the latter. The objective of this project is to provide the required amenities and infrastructure to allow people with disabilities to fully enjoy the public beaches, including the swimming zones. The project comprises the procurement of 40 floating beach wheelchairs and 150 meters of beach access mat, which shall be put at the disposal of persons with impaired mobility. I am informed that meetings have been held with the Ministry of Social Integration, Security and Solidarity, the Ministry of Housing and Land Use Planning, the Ministry of Blue Economy, Marine Resources, Fisheries and Shipping, to fine-tune the requirements of the project. Also, site visits have been conducted to make a preliminary assessment of the beaches for the implementation of the project. The latter shall initially be implemented at 4 public beaches, namely Montchoisy, Fic-en-Flac, Belmore, and Saint-Félix. An online booking system is being designed by the Beach Authority to enable bookings to be effected in a user-friendly manner. The operations at sea within identified swimming zones shall be overseen and supervised by beach lifeguards to be employed by the Beach Authority. In that respect, discussions are underway with the Ministry of Finance, Economic Planning and Development for the recruitment of new personnel to enable the kickstarting of operations. The Beach Authority is looking into collaboration with other organizations for the successful implementation of the project, along with ensuring training of the personnel. I am informed that bids for the procurement of the floating beach wheelchairs and beach access mat have been launched on the 7th of March 2022 and closed on 14th April 2022. Bids received will be evaluated. The contract is expected to be awarded in May 2022 and equipment delivered in the coming month. And we are looking forward for the operationalization of the project.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. And this is a laudable initiative on behalf of both ministries. I'm sure there are so many people who are with disabilities who are following this question and the answer. So they have a request if the Honourable Minister could extend this initiative to some other places which could be under his aegis, under the aegis of the Minister of Environment for the accessibility, like to some green spaces, to some sports facilities as well. Why not for those who suffer with disabilities? If he can just like extend the same service to those who cannot access those mentioned.
Monsieur le Président, pour le gouvernement, il est important que toute personne, quelle que soit leur condition physique, puisse bénéficier des facilités offertes par les autorités. Je dois dire que cette mesure donnant accès aux personnes autrement capables à la mer et à la plage est très bien accueillie par la population. Nous travaillons sérieusement pour pouvoir offrir ces mêmes facilités à un nombre plus important de plages. Et je dois dire aussi que les structures qui sont prévues doivent être facilement enlevées. Je parle notamment des tapis roulants pour donner accès à la mer. Et cela se fait bien sûr dans le respect de l'environnement et du décor de nos plages. Nous nous préparons donc à accueillir cette nouveauté, qu'il faut le dire, est une bouffée d'air frais pour les personnes autrement capables et leurs familles.
Next question.
B350.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm informed by the Ministerial Council of Portways that it has undertaken cleaning, desilting and maintenance work all along Latania River between the 13th of December 2021 and 28th of January 2022 over a total approximate length of 5.25 kilometers. No dredging work was undertaken thereat. I'm also informed by the Municipal Council of Portways that no case of flooding has been reported thereat during the torrential rain of February and March 2022. However, the flood which occurred on the 13th of March 2022 at Bourg-sur-Mer, Ramlagan, Vallée des Prêtres was due to the overflowing of rivulet Latanier, which is a tributary to Latanier River. As per information gathered by the officers of the Municipal City Council of Portways at the latter site, it has been reported that the reserve of the rivulet Latanier might have been tampered by an individual at the time of construction work, thereby causing the water path to be diverted towards the residential area during the heavy rainfall of 13th of March 2022 and the resulting overflow of water. Mr. Speaker, sir, with regard to Part B of the question, I'm informed by the Land Drainage Authority and also by the Municipal City Council of Port Louis that in order to avoid recurrence of overflowing of the rivulet Latanier, the following works are being undertaken. Number one, as a temporary measure, cleaning and removal of debris were effected by the Municipal City Council of Port Louis after the heavy rainfall on the 13th of March 2022, including the region of Mosul-Ramlagan, Vallée des Prêtres, Pont-Marjolin, Résidence La Cure, Baitul Nour Street, Résidence La Cure, and Louis de Selle Bridge and Abattoir Road, Rochebois. Secondly, desilting and widening of rivulet Latanier over a stretch of 850 meters from an average width of 6 meters to a recommended width of 10 meters and an average depth of 1.5 meter to an average depth of 2.5 meters, wherever feasible, has been recommended by the Land Drainage Authority. This work will be undertaken by the National Development Unit through its framework contractor over a period of 4 months, starting by the end of April 2022 at an estimated cost of 3.8 million rupees. Thirdly, construction of flood wall along rivulet Latanier as per recommendation of the Land Drainage Authority, which will be carried out by the National Development Unit under its framework agreement. The work could start by early June 2022 and will last over a period of about 4 months. Fourthly, the Road Development Authority would upgrade the Bernardin de Saint-Pierre Bridge to ensure adequate hydraulic capacity of rivulet Latanier crossing the bridge, for which work could start by early June 2022 and would be completed in 8 months' time. And fifthly, the Municipal Council of Port Louis will conduct regular monitoring of the state of cleanliness of Latanier River and will also carry out maintenance of the said river as and when required. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Municipal City Council of Port Louis has also requested the Ministry of Agro-Industry and Food Security to initiate appropriate action against the action under the Rivers and Canal Act against one individual who has illegally undertaken development along the rivers of the rivulet Latanier, contrary to conditions imposed by the Forestry Service at the time of seeking a building and land use permit.
Thank you, Mr. Minister. Thank you very much for this answer. And I'm sure my honorable colleagues as well are very happy to learn about the works which are forthcoming for Rivière Latanier. But in your answer, you did mention that we have several tributaries, like several rivulets, which comes down to Rivière Latanier. So I would love to request the honorable minister to look into the matter that when we do the desilting of the river, we don't focus only on the main ones, but we do for the tributaries as well, because they do contribute to the flooding of the main river as well. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, I completely agree with the honourable member, and this is going to be looked into by the LDA. Thank you.
Another last request, Honourable Minister. We have been focusing... Yes, another question to the Honourable Minister. You have mentioned about the length of the river being desilted by the municipality of Port Louis. However, can you confirm to the House that you are giving the same focus for the outlet of the river Latanier? Because some inhabitants on the side of Batricasé Briqueterie have shared their concern, saying that we are taking the water from Rivière Latanier and we are bringing them to the outlet which goes through Batricasé Briqueterie to Rochebois. Thank you.
Actually, Mr. Speaker, sir, it's a major work that's going on there. I mean, it's just not Latanier River. You're right. The work, I mean, the river continues through Rochebois as well. A different project has been earmarked for Rochebois to clean the Rochebois area where it kind of joins the sea. This work is we are working on this work as well.
Next question.
B351.
Mr. Speaker, sir, in reply to part A of the question, I'm informed that 80 cases were referred to the Medical Negligence Standing Committee since 2019 to date. Out of these 80 cases, a total of 20 cases of alleged medical negligence pertains to maternal and neonatal units registered in our health institution. Out of the 20 cases, 6 were related to neonatal units and 14 to maternal units. Mr. Speaker, sir, after preliminary investigations conducted by the Medical Negligence Standing Committee, out of the 20 cases, medical negligence was concluded in 2 cases related to neonatal services and 7 to maternal services, which were subsequently referred to the Medical Council for further investigation and appropriate disciplinary action as deemed necessary. Mr. Speaker, sir, with regard to Part B of the question, I am informed that an independent audit in regard to neonatal death has been carried out by Dr. Simon Clark, the Vice President for Policy, Royal College of Pediatricians and Child Health of United Kingdom. The latter has visited all the neonatal units of the 5 regional hospitals and has carried out a medical auditing in November last year. Since then, he is running a weekly virtual ward round with the specialists and medical and health officers. He is providing his advice in the care and treatment offered to critically ill babies and has already submitted his recommendations. Mr. Speaker, sir, in regard to Part C of the question, my ministry has recently opened a neonatal ICU at Victoria Hospital with 11 NICU bed capacity. My ministry is also setting up a new neonatal ICU at Nehru Hospital with 8 to 10 NICU beds capacity. To further improve the neonatal services and improve critical care management of newborns, case discussions for all newborns were admitted or been done by consultant in charge, and daily meetings being carried out by NICU units to follow up on the status of all babies admitted. Consultant in charge have developed neonatal guidelines and protocols that will be implemented in the neonatal services as benchmarks to carry out medical auditing. In the same vein, my ministry has enlisted the services of Dr. Simon Clark, the Vice President of the For Policy Royal College of Pediatricians, who is currently establishing a training program for pediatricians so that in the future, our medical doctors who follow the training may be certified to work as neonatologists. Dr. Simon Clark is also providing support in the training of medical and health officers, nurses, and midwives to allow for a multidisciplinary approach in the care of critically ill newborns. He is additionally advising and helping in the implementation of neonatal health services, guidelines and protocols which will be applicable in all the neonatal ICUs to standardize the ongoing practice. Mr. Speaker, sir, ongoing training courses have also been run in collaboration with the World Federation of Pediatric Intensive and Critical Care Societies, represented by the Neonatal and Pediatric Intensive Care Foundation, namely the Certificate in Neonatal Ventilation and Advanced Life Support for medical staff in NICU, and Certificate in Neonatal Critical Care Nursing for nurses. As at date, 105 doctors and 104 nurses have already received the training. In addition, my ministry is currently working on proposals for implementation of the post of neonatal registrar and specialized nurses that would be appointed to work in the NICUs of regional hospitals with a view to improve the service delivery. 2 new courses certified in critical care for NICU trained medical health officers and senior medical health officers, and certificate in neonatal respiratory therapy for NICU trained nurses, leading to specialized nurses in the field of neonatal respiratory therapy will start in the near future. Mr. Speaker, sir, to further enhance our neonatal services, new treatment modalities are being introduced. A new cooling therapy has been recently implemented in all 5 neonatal intensive care units. Nitric oxide therapy will also become a reality soon in the neonatal intensive care units. Mauritius will be one of the very few African countries to provide this therapy in the neonatal intensive care units. Dedicated training program aimed towards treatment of critically ill babies with severe pulmonary hypertension who have minimal chance of survival are also being envisaged. This treatment will lead to increased chance of survival of critically ill babies. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Merci. Malgré tout ce qui a été dit par l'honorable ministre juste là, les faits sont que semaine après semaine, nous entendons encore et encore des cas de négligence alléguée sur des nouveau-nés. De toute évidence, le système de santé actuel, tel qu'il est, a malheureusement le potentiel de faire de graves torts à beaucoup de bébés si les changements qui sont nécessaires ne sont pas implémentés. Puis-je demander à l'honorable ministre de dire à la Chambre le montant des compensations payées pour négligence médicale sur les nouveau-nés de 2019 à ce jour?
Mr. Speaker, sir, I strongly disagree with the word malgré. This is efforts done by the ministry, by the officers, by the doctors, pediatricians, and nurses to improve the service, and it is not a question of malgré. It is a question of improving, and all what I've said, it's been done, and here I will congratulate the whole team working in the neonatal services for all the efforts they are putting in to improve the services. Secondly, it's not malheureusement. I believe that the question should be targeted to why are we having neonatal issues, problems. This question should I have given the answer, why we are having these problems, what are about those cases who are having difficulties, the neonatal problems, why it's happening like this? This should have been the question. We should understand why we are having babies having difficulties. What are the babies, mothers who are, for example, having HIVs, mothers who are the elderly mothers, what we call, who are delivering now in our institutions. Cases referred from the private clinics where they know that these are critical babies, and they are being admitted in our services. And also, we should not forget that there are also mothers with problems, with diabetes or other medical problems, and having babies delivered in our institution. There are so many causes. So it is not a question of malheureusement. It's a question of what are we doing for these mothers? What are we doing for these babies who we have, unfortunately, they are born in critical state. This should be addressed. Now, the question of compensation, it doesn't rest with the ministry. This has a legal procedures, and this has to be, the court case has to be followed, and as per the court verdict, the compensation is based on these particular cases, and it is not the ministry who can determine in a case of medical negligence or in a case where there has been, human life, and we can determine the compensation. It's all for the court to determine compensation.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think, as the Minister said, Professor Simon Clark is obviously doing a great job in this country with regard to neonatal services, and I thank the Ministry to have sought his help. However, will his ministry consider the setting up of a national confidential inquiry into stillbirth and maternal death on a triennial basis, which is already happening in so many developed countries. This will thereby enable both clinicians, gynecologists, pediatricians, neonatologists, nursing staff to learn from the mistakes of the past and improve, and so as to decrease neonatal deaths and maternal deaths. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Now, again, I'll just get it. I myself came to know that the House, they can, if they may wish to know that in February 2019, so a committee of inquiry was set up by the government and to inquire into cases of maternal deaths in Mauritius. Now, this committee is chaired by a former judge and is assisted by a specialist in obstetrics and gynecology. So, the ministry has also introduced in 2020 a maternal and child health handbook where future mothers can collaborate with professionals. And also for this, for this committee chaired by the former judge, so because of the pandemic, all that, they haven't been able to conduct their inquiry. But as per my information, it is expected that they will come up with a report by end of this year. And then we'll come to know what is the status of the healthcare delivery system for especially maternal and neonatal services.
Number two.
Question already canvassed, Mr. Speaker, sir. Thank you.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Le ministre peut-il informer la Chambre sur le nombre de médecins qui ont été suspendus ou ont fait l'objet de mesures disciplinaires par le Medical Council depuis 2019 suite à ces rapports?
Mr. Speaker, so unfortunately, I don't have this reply, but surely I will find out with the Medical Council and the PSC to get the number of doctors who have been given warning, severe warning, reprimanded, or even suspension. So unfortunately, at this moment, I don't have these answers.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Le ministre de la Santé peut-il nous dire si son ministère compte prendre les mesures nécessaires afin de s'assurer qu'un gynécologue et un spécialiste obstétricien soient basés en permanence au lieu d'être on call comme c'est le cas actuellement, et cela afin de parer à toute urgence?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, so rightly pointed out by the honourable member. In fact, the ministry is working to have 24 hours on call of the gynecologist, obstetrician gynecologist in the hospital. Obviously, this is also, we are working with the Ministry of Finance, and then once we get all the green light, this will be implemented. So hopefully, let's cross fingers that in the coming budget, we can have something in this line.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Can the Honourable Minister inform the House whether his ministry intends to formalize this collaboration with Dr. Simon Clark?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir. In fact, Dr. Simon Clark, at present, he is in Mauritius. So he is in Mauritius for a visit. That is, the visit is in collaboration with the ministry, and he will have regular visits to Mauritius for a teaching program with foreign consultants. And then what we are planning to do, it is that he will be, we are trying to enlist him as our advisor on neonatal services. And we'll be working on the, the contract. We can sign this contract with Dr. Simon Clark soon.
Next question.
Yes, B352.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I am informed by the Mauritius Post Limited that out of its 1,148 employees, 53 were not fully vaccinated as at 19th of April 2022, which is today, representing only 5.6% of the workforce. Out of these 53 officers, 51 have been debarred from attending duty as from the 19th of April in accordance with the consolidated COVID-19 Amendment number 5 Regulations 2022 made under the Quarantine Act 2020, wherein Mauritius Post Limited has been listed in the 5th schedule as a place where access is restricted to officers who are not fully vaccinated with a booster dose. The remaining 2 officers have been granted access to the workplace upon production of a valid negative PCR test certificate. Mr. Speaker, sir, with regards to the posting of these 51 officers, I am tabling the information.
Mr. Speaker, sir, is the Honourable Minister aware of long queues at post office, especially in Port Louis and in Rosehill, due to lack of officers verat?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir, it is quite obvious when we have 53 officers not attending duty because they are not fully vaccinated, that will have an effect on the service delivery. But what is important is measures that have been taken by the Mauritius Post in order that there is less disruption in the services. And there are a couple of measures that have been taken. For example, redeployment of officers in post as well as using the pool of relieving postal officers. They have also extended the hours of service to pensioners and customers in various posts. Counter officers have voluntarily reduced their lunch time to support the service, and a long list of various initiatives that have been taken to have less disruption in the service of customers.
Ask the Honourable Minister what the Mauritius Post envisage to do for the officers that are not fully vaccinated.
Mr. Speaker, sir, there have been a few communiques that have been sent to all the staff, in fact, at the Mauritius Post, circular notes, and also a personalized letter from the management to encourage those officers to do their vaccine because they work with public and we have to protect the public and the population at large. So there have been sensitization with those 54 or 53 officers so that they do their vaccine and they could resume their work.
Next question.
B354.
Mr. Speaker, sir, in my reply to the House on 24th November 2020, I had informed that the activities and operations of CB Facilities Company Limited were being reassessed with a view to rationalizing and streamlining current procedures for an improved service delivery in the energy sector. Subsequently, taking into account the financial sustainability aspects, especially with the COVID-19 pandemic and other relevant factors, it was decided that CB Facilities Company Limited would discontinue activities relating to tree lopping and cleaning. Arrangements were made for staff and assets concerned to be transferred to the Central Electricity Board in line with prevailing procedures. Mr. Speaker, sir, as at date, I am informed that CB Facilities Company Limited is operating only its call center.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Monsieur le Président, j'ai 3 questions au ministre. Permettez-moi, avec votre permission, de canvas ce thème. Monsieur le ministre, le mot exact qu'on peut qualifier CB Facilities, c'est que la compagnie est en faillite. En juillet 2018, votre prédécesseur, en tant que ministre, accepte le plan proposé par les directeurs de CB Facilities, préconisant un profit aux premières années de 16 millions, deuxième année 20 millions, troisième année 27 millions. Le dernier rapport financier du CB Facilities, le 30 juin 2020, montre un profit de 3 797 roupies. Le CB Facilities a emprunté du CEB 47 millions de roupies le 12 février 2020. Est-ce que, Monsieur le ministre, vous voulez dire à la Chambre que le CB Facilities ne pourra pas rembourser les 47 millions de roupies, l'argent des contribuables pris au CEB?
Mr. Speaker, sir, the honourable member has provided the House with a lot of information. But the question that he has put to me, at no point in my main reply did I evoke that issue. But it is good to note, Mr. Speaker, sir, that is why in my main reply, dated 24th November 2020, I had informed the House that the activities and operations of CB Facilities were being reassessed with a view to rationalizing and streamlining current procedures for an improved service delivery in the energy sector. This was based on a decision taken by government in the month of October 2020 in order to review the state of affairs of the subsidiaries of the CB, thereby moving forward with a reduction in cost of operation and making those subsidiaries more optional and creating a synergy with the result for greater efficiency and effectiveness. This is the government decision, Mr. Speaker, sir, and that decision was implemented. The loss could have been more today, Mr. Speaker, sir. That is why that I said the only activity now that the CB Facilities has is its call center, whereby it has discontinued activities related to tree lopping and cleaning.
Il faudra savoir qui a raison. L'ancien ministre est venu avec ce projet de CB Facilities, je parle ici de l'ancien ministre Colin Davelou. Quand le CB Facilities, vous venez en juillet 2020, Monsieur le ministre, vous videz le contenu de CB Facilities de ces hardcore services, le tree lopping comme vous le dites, le security services, le cleaning services, même le call center, la CWA se retire, il ne restera que le CEB, donc c'est clair que le CB Facilities aura une mort certaine dans quelques jours. Donc, Monsieur le ministre, vous êtes au courant que 42 millions de roupies ont été dépensés dans l'achat d'équipements de boom lift, télescopique, single cab 11, 14 trucks. Donc, Monsieur le ministre, il faudra quelque part dire la vérité. Est-ce que quand vous avez vidé le CB Facilities de ce contenu, de ces hardcore services, c'est pour cette raison que le CB Facilities va mourir sans rembourser les 47 millions de roupies, l'argent des contribuables pris au CEB. Il faudra quelque part dire la vérité.
I'm a bit surprised by the question, Mr. Speaker, sir, because some month back when the opposition had put questions with regard to CB subsidiary companies, they wanted to close all the 3 companies. Now, we have, like I said, we have taken the decision to maintain the operation of the call center because this was the main reason that CB Facilities was created, because at that time, the CB was paying quite an amount of money to a subsidiary of Mauritius Telecom in respect of call centers. Now, a year later, CB Facilities came forward with a strategic plan. And in that strategic plan, they included tree lopping, cleaning and security services. And I said, we have taken that decision because we wanted to reassess the performance of CB Facilities. We have reassessed the performance of that subsidiary of the Central Electricity Board, and based on that, we have taken the decision to discontinue activities related to tree lopping and cleaning, and these activities are being taken care by the CB itself, Mr. Speaker.
Monsieur le ministre, donc vous acceptez que tôt ou tard, le CB Facilities va mourir avec les 47 millions de roupies, l'argent des contribuables. Monsieur le ministre, comment vous expliquez, au même moment que le directeur général du CEB touche un salaire de 250 000 roupies, CB Facilities, qui n'a plus aucune activité que le call center, comme vous dites vous-même, le directeur général du CEB est payé en tant qu'officier in charge 45 000 roupies en tant qu'officier in charge, 25 000 roupies pour siéger sur un board fantôme, 350 000 roupies en termes de net salary. Ce n'est pas dilapider l'argent des contribuables, monsieur le ministre, avec une compagnie fantôme.
Not at all, Mr. Speaker, sir. I believe the honourable member does...
L'honorable Nekchedi a dit que je fais arrête de faire palabre. Je lui demande de retirer ce mot.
Order. Honorable Nakchedi, if you have said so, please withdraw that one.
Can I, Mr. Speaker, sir?
Yes, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. In fact, Mr. Speaker, sir, the honourable member has come with a question related to the operation of the CB Facilities. I've given all the required information with regard to that. But then he has been putting forward issues that are not at all related to what the main question is. I've given all the required information, Mr. Speaker, sir. On the government side, we are satisfied of the decision that we have taken with regard to CB Facilities, and I've stated that with regard to tree lopping, cleaning and security services, this has been absorbed by the Central Electricity Board. CB Facilities will only operate its call center. He has mentioned also with regard to CWA, this is not at all related with today's question. And with regard to the salary of the general manager, we should not make people believe that the general manager is not doing his work correctly. He is at the head of the CB Facilities, and this is on a temporary basis until a final decision is taken with regard with CB Facilities. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Table is advised that PQ B363, B399, B409, B400, B428 have been withdrawn. Next question, B355.
Mr. Speaker, sir. According to the latest published Energy and Water Statistics 2020, imported fuels comprising petroleum products and coal made up 86.7% of the total primary energy requirement in 2020. The remaining 13.3% was from local sources, namely bagasse, hydro, wind, landfill gas, photovoltaic and fuel wood. Moreover, in 2020, the share of electricity generation from such non-renewable sources stood at 76.1%, and includes CB's thermal plants and the IPP's coal production. In such situation, Mr. Speaker, sir, Mauritius is very much exposed and vulnerable to fluctuations in prices on the international markets as well as exchange rates. These have a direct bearing on the CB's cost of production of electricity. It is to be highlighted that over the past 12 months, the price of HFO has risen by 61%, while that of coal has known a one-time high of USD 430 in March this year. Mr. Speaker, sir, the House will recall that in spite of such a difficult situation, the CB had come up with special COVID-19 relief measures during the 2 lockdown periods to alleviate the financial burden of consumers. Thus, the vulnerable households were exempted from payment of electricity bills. Surcharge was not applied and disconnection was not effected on account of non-payment of bills over defined periods. Recently, the Prime Minister had announced a subsidy on electricity tariff for a period of 12 months, again in a spirit of solidarity with the population. Mr. Speaker, sir, in order to reduce our dependence on imports and decarbonize the energy grid, government has a target to increase the share of renewables in electricity production while encouraging local sources of biofuel. My ministry is actively working on achieving these targets. Mr. Speaker, sir, I wish to point out that with regard to cost of production of electricity per gigawatt hour, there is no distinction made in respect of domestic or commercial use. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Yes, thank you. I thank the Minister. Due to the fluctuation of the foreign currency rate and fuel price, has the CB undertaken a study to optimize his production cost by using power plant having the lowest production costs?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir. This study has already been done since last year, and that was done because of COVID, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Can the Honourable Minister tell the House how many households are benefiting from the domestic social tariff?
Yeah, let me check. I think I have this reply with me, Mr. Speaker, sir. Yes, 62,961, Mr. Speaker, sir. Households are currently benefiting from the social tariff of 110A, and that tariff, they pay 31% less on the first 75 kilowatt hour consumed, and there is also a further 10% as government subsidies.
Yes, last question. My question is regarding a press conference on the 5th of March where you announced that the board of CB would submit recommendation to government regarding the rise of electricity tariff. Could the minister precise when this recommendation is expected?
No, Mr. Speaker, sir, I cannot. It is for the CB board to decide when they are going to submit it to the minister.
No supplementary. Yes. Thank you. In relation to the increase in tariff, can I ask the Honourable Minister whether the time has not come to revisit the tariff structure, especially with regards to the industrial tariff, which CB is selling at below production cost, and this is being used to cross-subsidize the the loss is being used is being partaken to the household. Whether the time has not come, especially that the budget is forthcoming, to revisit that tariff so that the people at the lower rungs of the ladder do not have to cross-subsidize for the industrial tariff.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir. This is being looked into and will be taken on board in the review of the tariff.
Next question.
B356.
Mr. Speaker, sir, a traffic impact assessment was carried out in around September 2020 under the Hillcrest Interchange project to assess the main access to Quatre-Beaune, namely the Saint-Jean roundabout, which operates as a connecting point to Saint-Jean Road A8 and Portrice Saint-Jean Road A1. It also serves as a major access point to complexes, including La Cité Trianon, which generate a high influx of traffic. This traffic impact assessment showed that the Saint-Jean roundabout was operating beyond capacity during peak hours, with subsequent queuing along motorway M1 and the main roads. In this context, to ensure a proper and efficient transport network in the region of Quatre-Beaune, especially Sudnac, whilst releasing the pressure from Saint-Jean Road, an alternative access to Sudnac at Hillcrest has been set up. The Hillcrest interchange allows traffic from motorway M1 moving towards Sudnac to bypass the Saint-Jean Road A8 and the Saint-Jean roundabout, thereby reducing the volume of traffic along Saint-Jean Road and ensuring proper integration with the light rail system. Sir, a traffic study and modeling and simulation exercise were carried out along Saint-Jean Road by Lawson and Toubeau in 2020. Following this modeling and traffic simulation exercise, before the introduction of the new traffic configuration along Saint-Jean Road, a traffic master plan in October 2020 was developed jointly by the Metro Express Limited and the Traffic Management and Road Safety Unit of my ministry and the police to review the traffic outline in the region of Quatre-Beaune. Consequently, a new traffic scheme and a series of measures have been implemented whereby all secondary roads have been reviewed and redesigned and ancillary works have been carried out where necessary to facilitate access to Quatre-Beaune in September 2021 in line with the master plan of 2020. Furthermore, for the introduction of the new traffic signal arrangements along Saint-Jean Road, Lawson and Toubeau Limited and its contractor for the traffic signal priority system carried out extensive traffic simulation and modeling to synchronize the train movement with the road traffic and pedestrian movement. All the above exercises considered the traffic coming in and out of Quatre-Beaune, particularly during peak hours. As to part B of this question, the present traffic configuration is in place since the 26th February 2022, and so far, the traffic situation is relatively smooth. In fact, the new traffic scheme has eased the flow of traffic along Saint-Jean Road, and no major problem has been encountered so far, although the road users have yet to be fully accustomed with the new configuration.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. I have only two supplements. In light of the much increased time that it is now taking since February 2022 to move from Old Quatre-Beaune and Belrose to get to the M1 motorway via the newly adjusted single lane of Saint-Jean up and down, will the Minister see with the relevant authorities whether we could have manned policemen to override and regulate the traffic, particularly at two intersections where the Metro Express at Sergi-Fourgette and Belrose and at its junction with Saint-Jean, so as to improve the fluidity of the traffic. Let me inform the Minister, as a regular user of this junction, it now takes 25 minutes in the morning at peak time to move from Old Quatre-Bornes on just to the runabout of Saint-Jean, whilst before the plan of February 22, it was taking only 10 to 12 minutes.
Speaker, sir, I should also have added that before the implementation of this new traffic configuration, extensive consultations were held during many meetings and committees. The mayor of the municipality of Quatre-Bornes was present. The MLAs of the region, Honorable Ramanu and Joel, and other stakeholders were present. I myself have chaired a few meetings at the level of my ministry. A sensitization campaign was also effected, Mr. Speaker, sir, distribution of flyers, social media, and so on. And I must inform the honourable member that a multidisciplinary team composed of different authorities, such as the TMRSU, the RDA, the municipality of Quatre-Bornes, the police, the fire services, are in fact in place to monitor the situation. Of course, Mr. Speaker, sir, as I said in my reply, we are in the beginning of the process. In fact, the metro will be launched in a few weeks, and we have this team, Mr. Speaker, sir. We have done whatever was humanly possible to fluidify the traffic, Mr. Speaker, sir. We have catered for new parking lots. In fact, there are now 4 different parking lots, which in fact provide about 112 new parking slots on the streets, on the main street of Saint-Jean. 4 bus stops, 4 lay-bys, 9 pedestrian crossings, all controlled by traffic signal, delivery bays. Even raised platforms have been set up as safety measures for pedestrians, Mr. Speaker, sir. So we are at the start of the process. Of course, we are open to suggestions, and I welcome the proposal made by the Honourable Minister, the Honourable Member, and we will certainly take on board what was proposed by him and try to improve this new situation. It's a question of getting accustomed to the whole setup.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I would like to know from the Honourable Minister how do the parking facilities differ from the situation before work started at Saint-Jean Road?
Well, as I said, Mr. Speaker, sir, we have provided for much more parking facilities that obtained before the metro works started. We have acquired land, Mr. Speaker, sir, to provide parking facilities in the vicinity of Saint-Jean Road. So, to us, Mr. Speaker, sir, with regard to the new parking lots, we have acquired land, as I said, at now the 4 parking lots at Surat Saint-Jean, corner of Saint-Jean and Tulipe, corner of Glaïeul and Saint-Jean, on the Saint-Jean Road between Draper and Poivre Avenue, near the Goldeviard building, which everybody knows, which is on the main road at Saint-Jean. So we have off-street and on-street parkings, totaling, in fact, to the number of about 112 parking facilities, Mr. Speaker, sir, which is better than the situation before the work started.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honourable Minister, have the relevant authorities, particularly the TMRSU, make any contingent plans? For example, a towing vehicle or a towing unit at the Victoria station, should there be a breakdown or an accident along the up or down lane of Saint-Jean, keeping in mind that during the peak hours, it is bumper to bumper, and therefore, for any unfortunate reasons, be myself here or the public in general, have an emergency in their car, a medical emergency, where seconds matter, there is no other way to remove that car unless there is a backward pedaling of all cars from behind the car that's broken down. Please, as a MAP4, it is a serious matter, and it can happen to anybody at any time. Thank you.
I thank the honourable member for giving me the opportunity to answer this question, Mr. Speaker, which I'm sure will be of interest to all members of this House and the viewers who are watching us today. In fact, in case of a vehicle breakdown, we have also provided for in case of accident, in case of breakdown, for specific protocol, Mr. Speaker, sir. One protocol with the fire services and the police. But I must inform the honourable member also that all around Saint-Jean Road, there are available spaces on the side, not many, and we are trying to improve in the number of spaces which could be made available in addition. But there are now spaces where a vehicle, in case of breakdown, can be parked temporarily while waiting for the truck, for the load truck. And I must inform the honourable member also, I'm sure he knows, for small vehicles, they can also be temporarily parked along the newly constructed, relatively large footpath, which is mountable, which is sufficiently large along Saint-Jean Road. And as I said, for larger vehicles, several laybys are available. And as I said just now, Mr. Speaker, so 5 additional parking spaces have been created along Saint-Jean Road. So, in case of emergency or accident along Saint-Jean Road, Mr. Speaker, sir, the normal traffic might be diverted on alternative routes by the police, and the emergency vehicles would be allowed to attend the emergency following a strict protocol.
Last supplementary.
Since the minister has stated that he's publicly open, and he has stated it in no uncertain terms, that he's willing to hold a consultation, can I ask him, in the interest of all inhabitants and all those who use those roads, because we know that there's heavy traffic congestion, can I impress upon him, since he has stated it publicly, to hold another consultative meeting, to meet representatives of the inhabitants of Catrobon? And he has said that there is modeling study, that there's traffic simulation. People want to know the truth. Can I impress upon him to hold this consultative meeting and to make sure that all MPs of the constituencies are invited?
Mr. Speaker, sir, we are an open government. I say we are an open government. Yes. We are ready to open our ears to reasonable and sensible proposals and suggestions. So even this morning, Mr. Speaker, sir, I met somebody from Catrobon whom I didn't know. He's not my, Catrobon is not my constituency, but I even called him at my office because he told me he has certain proposals regarding Catrobon, the new traffic, the new traffic model, and so on. So he made a suggestion to me, and I listened to him. So, in case the honourable member wishes to make any proposal, I am prepared to listen to him or to his colleague or to any other citizens of Catrobon, Mr. Speaker, sir, to better this situation. But as I said, I must again repeat, Mr. Speaker, what I said earlier on. In the case we're talking about, our technicians, our experts have made optimum use of the existing road facilities in Catrobon to cater for a safe and efficient movement of traffic, including pedestrian safety, Mr. Speaker, sir. We have reversed the traffic in certain roads at Belrose. We have some lateral roads that we have changed the flow of traffic. We have changed the direction. What we have offered to the public today, Mr. Speaker, sir, is the product of elaborate planning and design by experts, and we have considered different options, but the criteria were primarily criteria of safety, of risk, of integration, and efficiency. Nevertheless, any reasonable improvement will be given consideration, Mr. Speaker, so I can assure the honourable member.
Next question. Next question.
B357.
Mr.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I wish to refer to Honourable Member to the reply I made to Parliamentary Question B53 by Honourable Buddha at our sitting on 11th May 2021, where I informed the House that in view of the complexity of the e-health project, the Ministry has decided to review the project specifications and cost of the National e-health project and endorse the proposal of the United Nations Development Programme to support and review the project free of cost prior to its launching. Accordingly, the UNDP consultant has reviewed the technical specifications and advised on some essential components that should be included at conception stage of the project. The UNDP consultant subsequently submitted his recommendations in September 2021. On 26 January 2022, my ministry signed a project portfolio document on e-health initiatives with the UNDP for the implementation of the e-health project, which includes inter alia. First, implementing a long-term digital health transformation strategy framework for my ministry. Second, study on site assessment and readiness. Third, implementing a patient administration system as the first phase of the rollout of the e-health project. And fourth, setting up of a project management unit by the UNDP to assist my ministry during the duration of the project. My ministry, I am also informed that the UNDP has launched the expression of interest for implementation of the e-health on 10 February 2022, with closing date on 20th March 2022. 29 bids were received and are presently being evaluated by the UNDP. A demo exercise of shortlisted solution is being envisaged as from end of April 2022, which would be followed by launching of the request for proposal by the UNDP in June 2022 for the implementation of e-health. The targeted date for the complete rollout of the patient administration system is December 2023. Mr. Speaker, sir, let me reassure the House of the highest level of commitment from both my ministry and the UNDP for the implementation of the e-health project. A steering committee, which meets on a monthly basis, has already been set up at the level of my ministry, which comprise representatives of the Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of Information Technology, Communication and Innovation, and the United Nations Development Programme. I have chaired 2 steering committees meeting to date. The next meeting is scheduled on Thursday, 21st April 2022, and will be co-chaired by the Minister of Information Technology, Communication and Innovation and myself. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Speaker. Can the Honourable Minister inform the House of the implementation of the COVID-19 Laboratory Information Management System? Same line.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, this is again a project in collaboration with the UNDP and the WHO. So this is the LIMS, the way we call it, the Laboratory Information Management System. It is fully operational at the Central Health Lab and in all the COVID testing centers and regional hospitals. This LIMS is now being scaled up to include other tests in the virology, bacteriology, biochemistry, and hematology departments. And we are benefiting the support of UNDP in the upscaling of this digital solution. And I'm informed that the equipment necessary for the scaling up are expected to be installed and commissioned by June 2022. And what will change now What will change is all the tests that are being sent to the Central Health Lab. So the results will be in a digitalized form, so there would be no need for to go and back and fetch all the results and distribute it, send it to the hospitals or to the other health centers.
Can the Honourable Minister inform the House whether such digital services are being considered for disease surveillance in Mauritius?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir. Now, this it is a priority, especially because of the COVID pandemic and all that, but also because of other diseases, dengue fever, chikungunya. So it's very important for us to have a digital platform to monitor the disease surveillance. Now, for that, I'm informed that under the financing agreement with the UNDP, again, we are implementing a digital solution for the management and analysis of surveillance, outbreak, and response. And this facility, again, will be placed at the port of entries of the country, in regional hospitals, and in health offices. And this facility, it will facilitate the contact tracing for a range of infectious diseases. So that also is under preparation.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Can the Honourable Minister inform the House if the e-health project will also be implemented to all mediclinics and dispensaries around the island?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir, this project will be implemented in all the health services, be it in the hospitals or in the area or regional, in the community health centers, but the implementation will be in a phased manner. So we will implement it in a phased manner, and as I have already stated in my reply.
Last supplementary.
Yes, can the Minister inform the House whether there was an e-tendering exercise for the e-health project and where matters stand?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir. In fact, in October 2019, the HSCC India, which was the consultant for the e-health project, launched bids in India, and that none of the bids received were technically responsive. Consequently, a steering committee set up and co-chaired by the permanent secretaries of my ministry and Ministry of ICT for appropriate recommendations, and the requirements for the e-health project were thus reviewed. So in the past we did that but finally it did not it was not fruitful.
Next question.
B358, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm informed by the Land Drainage Authority has declared the following regions in constituency number 12, Maibou, Plaine-Magnon, as flood-prone areas. Cité-Paul Langlois, Plaine-Magnon, Mortaba Village, Trois-Boutiques Village, Grand Bel-Air Village, Petite Bel-Air. And as at date, the NDU has already completed major drain projects in those flood-prone areas amounting to some 158 million rupees as follows. Flood mitigation measures in Cité-Paul Langlois, Phase 1. Flood mitigation measures in Mortaba, Phase 1. Along River Taba and along School Lane to River Outlet. Flood mitigation measures in Trois-Boutiques. Drain works at Rishi Dayanan and Pandit Sahadewi Street, Petit Bel-Air. Drain works at Renoir Street, Raphaël Street, Ruben Street, Ville-Noire. And at Morcellement Ville-Noire, near Qualité Boutique. Drain works at Lolji Lane, Mortaba. Drain works at Outer Lane, near Baitka. And Nasir Shop, Cité Balance, Bissois Lane, and La Grotte Lane in Plaine-Magnon. Drain works near Dupéré Primary School and at Offray Street, Maibou. Drain works at Club Road, Plainbois. Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm also informed that projects amounting to some 188 million are currently under construction as follows. Drain works in region of Maibou at the following location. Drain network along Ramnaren Lane, Delors Lane, Ganpat Lane, and Rue des Bambous. Rue Dravidien, La Passe Street near Monte Carlo Restaurant, Rue Camisard, corner Rue Flamand and Saint-Martin Street, and off Rue Maurice. Drain works in the region of Beauvallon at the following location: Club Road, Beauvallon, and near Victoria Shop, Cité, Beauvallon. Drain works in the region of Trois Boutiques along Bija Road, intersection with Temple Road, Mont-Selman-les-Palmiers, Beaufort, latéral Cité Trois Boutiques, Chevala Lane, Bombay Lane, and crossing along B8 Labarack Road and Carwenouf. Drain works in the region of Mort Albert along Moabir Singh Street and Gandhi Road. Drain works in the region of Petit Bel-Air, downstream from Main Bridge to the sea, and Résidence NHDC Pierre de Lune. Drain works in Plaine Magnan, completion of drain works along La Baraque Road, along Résidence EDC Balance, Bois d'Oiseau, Couteau Lane, along Chemin Road. Drain works in Junction La Chapelle-Le Bouchon, School Lane, Grand Bel-Air, and Jagou Lane, Grand Bel-Air still. Mr. Speaker, sir, the project flood mitigation measures at Mortaba, Phase 2, which comprises approximately 325 meters masonry cut-off drain along B82 Road and 495 meters of drain work along Manda Plain, Mortaba, is at bidding stage for the appointment of a contractor. In addition, land acquisition procedures have been initiated for Phase 2 of the flood mitigation measures at Plaine Magnan, which comprise drain work from outlet of Phase 1 to Trou-Magnan over a stretch of 290 meters. Furthermore, the following projects are at bidding stage for appointment of a consultant for the study, design, and supervision of flood mitigation measures in the region of Petit Bel-Air and Grand Bel-Air. Drain works in the region of Mont-Selman, Villeneuve. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Well, the Honourable Minister is well aware that very recently, on the 6th of April, we have had severe floodings in the region of Plaine Magnan and Trois Boutiques. Now, may I ask the Honourable Minister, what about the land drainage master plan? Has this been completed? And if so, were those areas covered and identified by the plan?
Mr. Speaker, sir, I don't think the Honourable Member must mix up issues. The land drainage master plan is one thing that consists of a drain master plan for the whole island. As I said, in 2019, the Land Drainage Authority has already identified all the flood-prone regions and has declared them so. And work has already started. And obviously, it will take an amount of time to attend to it. As I've already mentioned, we have 150 million rupees of work have been completed. You have 188 million rupees under construction. So obviously, it's gonna take time. And there are other regions that requires consultancy services to tell us what to do, what people need to understand. When we are talking about flooding, we are not working in an aquarium. It's not taking the problem from point A and shifting it to point B. We have to solve it in such a way that you take it to a river that eventually take it to the sea. So this is what we are doing. When the Honourable Member is mentioning Plaine Magnan, he knows very well we have no river in Plaine Magnan. So what do we have to do in here? Works are ongoing. For instance, Phase 2, which I'm mentioning here, that will take Phase 1, where it comes to, it ends in Cité Balance, in Cité Paul Langlois. We will take this water toward Trou-Magnan. This land has been reclaimed. People before has come and backfill those natural drains. So now we are having to acquire to reinstate that natural drainage path so that it goes in Trou-Magnan, which is a lava tunnel. So work is ongoing, and I think the master plan or not, the LDA today has the required competencies to do what has to be done to solve problem as it should be. And obviously, dealing with drainage problem, dealing with climate change. We are seeing having a heavy precipitation. We are seeing flood-prone regions, new flood-prone regions coming up after solving some. Thank you.
Very simple. The law has been enacted in 2017. We are now in 2022. My question is, where is that master plan which was supposed to identify flood-prone areas and come up with solutions to those problems? Where is it? Has it been finalized? Because the minister, to a PQ from Honorable E2, stated that the plan will be ready by September 2021. We are now in 2022. Where is the master plan? This is my question.
Unfortunately, but I'll answer, Mr. Speaker, sir. The honorable member should know he's your second mandate. He put a question about constituency number 12. What other works has been done? What are the flood-prone areas? This has been replied already. And now he's being adamant about the master plan. There is a master plan. Master plan is ready, but I have to go to cabinet. I need cabinet approval, I need government approval. And anyway, whatever has been written in the master plan, there is no, it's no rocket science. We have identified what are the regions, which people already know what are the regions, and now we will propose what are the solution in a holistic approach. You will also probably have places where we will declare no-go zone. But once again, this does not pertain to the main question, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I refer also to the recent unfortunate flooding around the village of Plaine-Maillan. Can the Minister inform the House what are the immediate measures that the LDA has recommended? Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, sir, what has happened in Plaine-Maillan is in twofold. There has been tampering of natural drainage path. So, firstly, we will have to restore the natural drainage path. Unfortunately, the district council, authority with which lies the BLUP, granting the permission to build, they haven't been doing their follow-up, and unfortunately, it is what it is. Firstly. Secondly, the water table is high in that region. If the honorable member will agree, for instance, Cité Bois d'Oiseau, there was no water coming on the surface. We were having springs coming from underground. So this is the water table is high. So water plan, master plan or not, the master plan got nothing to do with the water table getting high, Mr. Speaker, sir. Thank you. So here also, as I have mentioned already in my reply, works order has been issued already for, firstly, a drain along Bois d'Oiseau Road, along Couteau Lane, along Chairman Road, and there will be upgrading of the drain on the main road by the RDA.
Last supplementary.
Okay. Can the Honourable Minister state at which frequency the Land Drainage Authority update and what are the criteria to be designated as a flood-prone area?
I should thank the honourable member for this question, interesting one. I think, yes, so it's important for people to know that for the Land Drainage Authority, it's not about, when you are talking about flooding, it's not reading it on maps or textbooks. We'll have to, like Honourable Boulel like to say, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. So we have to wait for it to rain. Then I should take this opportunity to salute this wonderful team of Land Drainage Authority that's doing a marvelous job, young engineers that goes out on the field when it's raining, they're putting their life at risk to observe what is happening, what is the flow of water, so that they can come with real solution and not sitting and just blabbering. Thank you.
The table has been advised that PQB 384, 366, 374, 393, 416, 427, 372, 397, 370 have been withdrawn. Next question.
359.
Mr. Speaker, sir, with your permission, I'm tabling information based on audited financial statements of the Central Electricity Board relating to surplus, accumulated surplus, and reserves of the Central Electricity Board over the period January 2015 to June 2020. It is to be highlighted that CB's financial statements are prepared on an accrual basis as per international public sector accounting standard and not on cash basis. Mr. Speaker, sir, accumulated surpluses are surpluses that have been accumulating since the creation and coming into operation of the CB, while reserves are surpluses that accumulated over re-evaluation of CB's fixed assets, which is performed every 5 years. With regard to Part A of the question, I am informed by the Central Electricity Board that the accumulated surpluses have been mainly utilized for implementation of capital projects to upgrade the infrastructure, for loan repayment, and loans to its subsidies. As for Part B of the question, I am further informed that the Central Electricity Board has made a total contribution of 3.12 billion rupees to the consolidated fund since 2015 to date. CB has moreover invested an amount of 1.2 billion rupees in its 3 subsidiaries since the latter's incorporation, and this comprised equity and loans. Financial statements for year ending June 2021 are being audited. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Loan à des subsidiaires du CEB from the accumulated reserve, qui est de 28,4 milliards de roupies, et réserve 7,8 milliards de roupies, selon l'annual report de l'année 2019-2020. Monsieur le ministre, vous entrez en fonction en juillet 2020. Est-ce que vous êtes au courant que, d'après le Shareholder Loan Facility Agreement signé entre le CEB et ses subsidiaires, je parle de 3 subsidiaires, Green Energy Facilities et l'autre CEB subsidiaire, est-ce que vous êtes au courant, monsieur le ministre, que ce Shareholder Loan Facility Agreement est illégal selon les lois de la Banque de Maurice, parce que le CEB n'a pas de licence pour prêter de l'argent pour faire des profits?
Mr. Speaker, sir, I believe that was a decision of the board of the CB, and I also believe that the board had recourse to legal advice before moving ahead with granting loan to the subsidiaries.
Avec une réserve accumulée de 28,4 milliards de roupies depuis 2015 et une réserve de 7,8 milliards, compte tenu de la hausse du coût du carburant pour le CEB, Monsieur le ministre, est-ce que vous envisagez d'utiliser une partie, je dis bien une partie de ces réserves accumulées pour atténuer toute augmentation prévue éventuellement du tarif d'électricité par le gouvernement?
This question is premature, Mr. Speaker, sir. In due course, we will say what we will do.
So, time is over by 4 minutes. 4 minutes. So any comments I won't entertain.
Motion.
Mr. Speaker, I move that all the business on today's order paper be exempted from the provisions of paragraph 2 of Standing Order 10.
The question is that all the business on today's order paper be exempted from the provisions of paragraph 2 of Standing Order 10. Those in favor say aye, those against say no. Aye. The ayes have it.
Statements by ministers.
Mr. Speaker, sir, following the matter raised by Honourable Sandra Mayotte at the sitting of 12 April 2022 at adjournment time concerning water leakages at the NHDC housing estates of Bamboo and Bassin, I wish, with your permission, to make a statement. Mr. Speaker, sir, I wish to emphasize at the very outset that all NHDC apartment blocks are co-owned property with partie commune and partie privative in accordance with a standard règlement de copropriété. As such, it is legally the responsibility of co-owners to ensure that the living environment and conditions in around the different blocks, as well as those in the partie privative of their apartments, are salubrious. So that in the normal course of things, it is entirely and essentially the co-owner's responsibility to set up their own syndic to look into the management and maintenance of these housing estates and common areas. There are to date some 41 syndics, but unfortunately, in most cases, these syndics have, since the very beginning, not been functioning, operating properly. Consequently, with a view to maintaining proper living conditions of the inhabitants of these NHDC apartments, the NHDC has had to intervene on an ad hoc basis, and government has had to provide funds every year to the NHDC to carry out rehabilitation works, which include waterproofing and treatment of other leakages. Mr. Speaker, sir, the NHDC cannot, by law, take over the syndics. A proper modus operandi has to be worked out for a long-term solution to the whole issue of syndic and management of these housing estates. This can only be achieved with the active involvement of the co-owners. To that end, I understand that the NHDC has already commissioned a study of the experience of syndic on the NHDC housing estates and commercial buildings. The report is expected soon. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Bamboo housing estate, on which stands 308 housing units, was built in 1999. That is more than 20 years ago. I am informed that the NHDC launched a request for proposal to hire the services of a consultant to carry out a comprehensive survey of necessary rehabilitation works, which include roof, waterproofing works, treatment of cracks on external walls, rainwater downpiping, gully traps, catch pits, and external painting works. The consultant will also be responsible for the design, preparation of bidding documents, and supervision of works. I understand a consultant is expected to be appointed by the end of April 2022, and works are expected to start by the end of this year. Again, in the absence of an effective syndic, government through the NHDC will spare no effort to address the concerns of the NHDC inhabitants of Bamboo, as represented here by Honourable Mayotte at adjournment time last Tuesday. Having regard to Bassin Sugar Estate, which comprises 102 housing units, I'm informed that the construction was completed in October 2020, and I'm informed by the NHDC that inhabitants have recently complained about roof leakages, as well as wall cracks and leakage in plumbing works. These are considered by engineers as minor defects that have unfortunately cropped up after the defect liability period ended in October 2021. But again, I'm informed that the NHDC has been ready to intervene, and the NHDC has awarded a contract for remedial works in March 22. The contract was awarded in March 2022, and works are expected to start this week to be completed by the end of May 2022. May I again thank the Honourable Lady for having drawn my attention to the issue, and I shall remain, of course, attentive to representations from members from both sides of the House in regard to problems encountered by inhabitants of NHDC housing estates. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I wish, with your kind permission, to make a statement regarding the increase in the price of LPG from 180 to 240 rupees for a 12-kilo cylinder, effective as from today, 19th of April 2022. LPG is a strategic commodity which is solely imported by the State Trading Corporation. The yearly requirement is around 78,000 metric tons, and it is a product that is widely consumed by all segments of the population. Conscious of the need for LPG to remain affordable at all times, the policy of the government has always been to subsidize the price of LPG since 2003. At that time, the subsidized retail price of a 12 kg cylinder was 224 rupees. In between February 2004 to February 2012, the subsidized retail price of a 12-kilo cylinder has always fluctuated within a bracket of 214 rupees to 300 rupees. And in March 2012, it reached an unprecedented peak of 330 rupees for a 12 kg cylinder. It is needless to add that the fluctuation and the hike of 330 rupees was dictated by market considerations and of price which the Brent crude oil fetched internationally. When the situation started to stabilize on the international scene and the financial situation of the STC was healthy, government decided to bring down the price of subsidized retail price of 12 kg cylinder to 217 rupees in August 2016, 240 rupees in June 2018, 210 rupees in June 2019, and 180 rupees in June 2020. However, with the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, back to back with the COVID pandemic, Mauritius is being affected by a never-seen double supply-driven shock. As a small island developing state with a small economy, far away from the traditional markets, Mauritius is even more vulnerable. No one can deny that Russia-Ukraine conflict has had a profound impact on prices of petroleum products, including LPG, as a derivative of petroleum products. Indicatively, Indicatively, Russia exports around 6.5 million barrels of Brent per day. Similarly, Russia accounts for 17% of natural gas production. Crude oil, Mr. Speaker, sir, rose significantly in 2021 as rising vaccination rates, gradually abandonment of restriction and reopening of borders resulted in petroleum demand rising faster than supply. The spot price of Brent crude oil, which was towards the end of 2020 at around $50 per barrel, rose to $80 per barrel in 2021, before stabilizing at $71 per barrel just before the outbreak of the war in Ukraine. Immediately after the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, the price of Brent on the international market started escalating to reach an unprecedented price hike of $140 in the first week of March 2022. The petroleum hub market is very volatile and unpredictable. And if the current situation persists, it will be inevitable that on the world market, the demand will remain persistently high than the supply. Consequently, it is not excluded that countries which do not have a robust and sustained procurement and supply program may face the risk of shortage or scarcity of petroleum products, including LPG. Mr. Speaker, sir, as a caring and responsible government, and in order to ensure continuity of supply and prevent any possible shortage while allowing the public to access LPG at an affordable price, the government has had no alternative but to intervene at the appropriate time in order to avoid future problems. In fact, to put matters in their proper perspective, government has simply reduced the subsidy element by a mere 9.1% on LPG. Consequently, out of a 12 kg cylinder, which the STC purchases at 661.49 rupees, the subsidized retail price is 240 as opposed to 180 as from today. It is worth mentioning, Mr. Speaker, sir, that for the financial year 2016-2017, when the subsidized price of LPG was 270 rupees, the total cost of subsidy borne by STC was 162.10 million rupees. In the financial year 2017-2018, the total cost of subsidy went up to 348.6 million rupees, 622 million rupees for the financial year 2018-2019, 752.4 million rupees for financial year 2019-2020, and slightly more than 1 billion for financial year 2020-2021. Furthermore, if the price has been maintained at 180 rupees, a projection for the next 12 months indicates that the total subsidy cost would have been more than 2 billion rupees. It was therefore necessary to curb down the escalating subsidy cost and prevent a crisis. I therefore wish to remind the House that the decision to reduce the subsidy element on a 12 kg cylinder by 9.1% has been solely motivated by the current international context. I also take this opportunity, Mr. Speaker, sir, to reassure the population at large that government is closely following the international situation as it is unfolding day by day. In difficult times, we all need to pull together because national solidarity is a key element to sustainability and success. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
What is it? No. What is it? The point of order?
No, clarification in the light of the statement made by the Honourable Minister. I have a right to do. We've done it before.
Is it factual? Exceptionally, I will allow this, but if it is factual. But if you will drag on and make a debate, I'll stop you.
Yeah. No, in his statement, the Minister has looked at the different case scenario, which I appreciate, the whole House appreciates. I know it's difficult for him, but from what he said, is there any chance that we may not have a full supply of LPG gas? That's what I want him to say.
Can you repeat your question? If it's not a question or a clarification.
Okay. And you have looked at different case scenario in your statement. Is there, since you've said that there's a risk that we may not have our full supply of LPG gas, is this a risk?
Well, there's no risk for our shortage at the moment, but we are monitoring the international situation, and that's it.
Madam Clerk.
Public bills, first reading.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the National Environment Cleaning Authority Bill number 5 of 2022 be read a first time.
Public bills, second reading.
Mr. Speaker, sir, with your permission, I wish to move that the Town Planners Council Bill number 19 of 2021 be read a second time. Mr. Speaker, the House will recall that one of the measures enunciated in the annex to the budget speech 2017-2018 was the setting up of a professional planners bill. The very purpose of introducing this bill is not only to regulate the profession, but also to recognize the professional work of town planners in shaping our built environment and the contribution that planners make, town planners make, to plan making, to site analysis, to project evaluation, and to the preparation of planning policy guidelines. That is, the provision of planning policy guidance. Regulating the practice of the profession is therefore considered an important step towards ensuring that the town planner performs his work skillfully, diligently, and in a dedicated manner. Planning professionals are expected to uphold high standards of competence and to conduct themselves in such a way that inspires trust and confidence. Mr. Speaker, sir, the main objective of town planning is to create sustainable communities while at the same time protecting and promoting the public interest. The preparation of the Town Planners Council Bill has therefore required an overview of other similar professional councils in the land and construction sector, both in Mauritius and internationally. And we have assessed best practices on the African continent, in Zimbabwe, Kenya, Nigeria, South Africa, and Ghana, which have already in the recent past established their own planning associations or institutes. These planning associations guide their professionals in dealing with complex land use challenges and have allowed them to share valuable town planning experience and propose solutions which can be adapted locally. Mauritius, therefore, cannot and should not lag behind. Mr. Speaker, in our local context, town planning has been fundamental in the shaping of modern Mauritius. The first settlements in Maibourg and Port-Louis bear testimony to the foundations of town planning in Mauritius, with well-planned streets, drains, and colonial buildings. With the rapid pace of urbanization and the growth of smart cities, the need for master planning at key metro interchanges, and the demand for social housing, the profession of town planning will be called upon to play an ever greater role in planning our neighborhoods, building greener and more affordable housing, balancing between competing needs, job creation and improvement of the quality of life of our citizens. Let me assure the House that town planning is not restricted to towns, as the name may suggest, but also includes planning, development of villages, rural and coastal areas. The House will be pleased to know that a new national land development strategy, which will orient development in a manner that will integrate economic competitiveness with environmental sustainability and social equity, is currently being prepared at the level of my ministry and is expected to be ready later this year. The new National Land Development Strategy will set out the vision for the territorial planning of the island of Mauritius, covering the period up to year 2040. Town planners will be expected to be familiar with the guiding principles and strategic orientations contained in the plan. Let me now, Mr. Speaker, indicate that prior to the introduction of the bill in this House, it has gone through a consultative process with stakeholders concerned. Consultations were held with the Ministry of Local Government and Disaster Risk Management, all the 12 local authorities, with the Town Planning Association of Mauritius, with the Town and Country Planning Board, to ensure that their views were addressed, were taken on board, rather. Further, the draft bill was uploaded on the website of my ministry, and there was unanimity among the stakeholders in favor of the setting up of the council to regulate an important profession in the design of sustainable communities and therefore in the construction sector. Mr. Speaker, allow me now to introduce to the House the main provisions of the bill, the objective of which, as stated in the explanatory memorandum, provides for the establishment of a Town Planners Council in order to register town planners, to regulate the profession of town planners, to exercise and maintain discipline in the profession of town planners, to promote advancement in the field of town planning, and finally, to approve, conduct, or cause to be conducted training courses, programs, lectures, seminars, or conferences, including continuing professional development courses or programs for town planners. I am told that there is a pool of around 80 town planners in Mauritius, working both in the public and private sectors, including, of course, the local authorities. Clause 5 of the bill, which is before the House, spells out the specific functions of the Council in order to meet its objectives. The Council will register town planners, it will exercise and maintain discipline in the provision, including establishment of a code of practice on standards of professional conduct and ethics, and the Council will monitor compliance with the code of practice. Moreover, as I stated earlier, the Council will organise training for the profession. The Council is also expected to provide guidance on various current planning issues as well as new planning issues such as heritage, traffic congestion, implementation of the new urban agenda, climate change, and more generally, urban renewal. The proposed composition of the Council is captured at Clause 7 of the Bill. Provision is being made for an adequate representation of the profession. The Council will therefore comprise 13 members, including 4 registered town planners from my ministry, 3 registered town planners from the local authorities, 2 registered town planners in private practice, a representative of my ministry at administrative level, as well as a representative of the Attorney General's office, and 2 additional persons who are not town planners. Members of the Council will be appointed for 2 years, a period of 2 years with the possibility of renewal, and the chairperson and vice chairperson will be elected from among the members who are town planners, either from my ministry, from the local authorities, or from the private sector. As for Clause 10 of the Bill, members will note that it makes provision for the setting up of a registration board, which will have a critical function in assisting the Council in the determination of applications for registration of town planners. And the board will consist of a chairperson and 2 assessors. Next, Mr. Speaker, sir, is the important Clause 19, which provides that henceforth no person shall be allowed to practice town planning in Mauritius unless he is registered as a town planner with the Council. This provision is at par with the provisions of other professional bodies in the very same property and construction sector. And I could quote the examples of the Professional Land Surveyors Council, or the Professional Architects Council, or the Professional Quantity Surveyors Council, or the Council of Registered Professional Engineers. The registration of town planners is a salient feature of this bill. The conditions for registration are spelt out at Clause 20 of the bill, which provides that the prospective registered town planner must be aged at least 21, must not have been convicted of an offence involving fraud or dishonesty, not only in Mauritius but in any other country, should not have been disqualified or deregistered from practicing town planning on account of professional misconduct, negligence, or a breach of the code of practice in any country, I stress. Also, and most importantly, the prospective registered town planner will need to hold a degree or a postgraduate qualification or equivalent qualification in town planning from a university or institution that is approved by the Council. And on top of the academic qualifications, must satisfy the Council that he has at least 2 years post-qualification experience in town planning. Of course, there are various related provisions that are spelt out in the bill. Mr. Speaker, in this ever-changing world, especially with the advent of digital technology, upgrading of skills is considered mandatory to meet challenges of today and tomorrow, which is why continuing professional development in the sense of an ongoing learning process to maintain and develop skills, expertise, and competence for all town planners is essential. Therefore, at Clause 22, CPD courses will be, it is provided that these courses will be organized for registered town planners. I must also refer to the registration of foreign firms of town planners, as provided for in clause 26 of the bill. Again, the operation of foreign firms will require registration with the council on terms and conditions that will be prescribed by our local regulatory body. There is at the moment many requests for preparation of master plans, both in the public and private sectors, and having recourse to international experts and firms is becoming more and more attractive in this area. It is therefore crucial to ensure, in the light of international experience, that such firms do comply with planning laws and planning instruments in force in Mauritius. Clauses 27 to 32 enable the Council to investigate complaints against a registered town planner having regard to professional misconduct, malpractice or negligence or breach of the Code of Practice, and the Council will be empowered to set up a professional conduct committee as and when necessary to look into the necessity of disciplinary proceedings. There are also the clauses 36 to 40 that refer to financial provisions and accounts of the Council, with the requirement of publication of an annual report and audited accounts every year. I'd like to refer members of the House also to clause 47D, which is very important because it allows a person who has proven experience over a continuous period of at least 20 years on the basis of an affidavit sworn by that person to be registered as a town planner, so that no prejudice is caused to long-serving town planners who may not meet the new standards being set. Overall, this bill provides the appropriate legal framework to be put in place to ensure that there is a more professional approach by town planners in dealing with land use planning concerns and managing land use changes. To conclude, Mr. Speaker, sir, as I have already stated in my introductory note, town planning is an essential component in the land development sector, and we should aim to have high-caliber professionals who will provide technical advice in an independent manner. As the construction sector has become a major pillar of our local economy, town planning can play a key part in creating vibrant and dynamic urban spaces. I therefore, with these words, Mr. Speaker, sir, commend the bill to the House. Thank you.
Seconded.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I thank you for giving me the opportunity to intervene on the Town Planners Council Bill, which seeks to better regulate the profession of town planners and which, henceforth, if passed, will allow town planners to, under terms and conditions as spelled out in the bill, accede to the status of professionals like engineers, doctors, architects, lawyers, accountants, to mention but a few. A very first observation that I would like to make, Mr. Speaker, sir, is that when this bill was first circulated in Parliament on 24th September 2019, that is 1 week or so before its dissolution on 6th October 2019 by Honorable Obigado's predecessor, Mr. Mahendra Group, and which was read a first time even, well, the bill was called a Professional Town Planners Council Bill. But the current version circulated in this House today, the bill is called a Town Planners Council Bill. The word professional has been removed. Now, I wonder about the reason for this change in the appellation of the bill, when the real purpose of the bill is to allow planners to accede to the status of professionals. Mr. Speaker, sir, for the engineers, the Minister has mentioned it, The council is called the Council of Registered Professional Engineers, and for the architect, the council is called the Professional Architects Council. Having said so, I have noticed one more difference between this version of the bill and that of Mr. Jagru in 2019, and it has to do with the composition of the board as it was then presented in 2019 at clause 7.1. And it consisted of 4 professional town planners from the ministry, 3 from the local government, and 2 from the private sector, making it a total of 8 planners over and above 1 representative from the Ministry of Land Use Planning and 1 representative from the Attorney General's office. I note that in the current bill that the Honorable Obigadu has circulated today, addition has been made for 2 persons who are not town planners to be appointed by the minister. Mr. Speaker, sir, if this has been done in the spirit of naming people of competence, in as much as town planning is an interdisciplinary field that it includes civil engineering and other branches of engineering, architecture, human geography, social and design sciences, I'm okay with that. But if it has been done with other intentions, I'm going to say it, to nominate friends and all these things, then I would say it will not serve the purpose. In fact, I would even propose to add 1 member from the public to form part of the council so as to act as watchdog for the citizens of the country. Having pointed out these differences between the 2019 and the 2021 bills, allow me, Mr. Speaker, now to move on to Section 20 of the bill on registration of town planner, more specifically at subsection C1, which states that no person shall be registered as town planner unless he satisfies the council, subject to subsection 3, that he has at least 2 years post-qualification experience in town planning. I wish to make a proposition here, and it has to be mentioned that the 2 years post-qualification has to be under the documented supervision of a registered planner, because I don't quite see it in the bill. And the Honourable Minister has mentioned just now that planners serving for over 20 years will, upon swearing an affidavit, be deemed to be considered as professional planner. So there we are. We have planners who can supervise these young planners for them to be registered. Mr. Speaker, sir, let me now move to Section 2D of the bill, which states that it seeks to promote the advancement in the field of town planning. A first comment here I would like to highlight for change in the interpretation section relating to the definition of town planning. The conceptors of the bill may have missed out that planning legislation is based on 2 existing legislations, that is the Town and Country Planning Act of 1954 and subsequently amended, and also the Planning and Development Act of 2004. I would move that the definition of town planning be made to refer to the much wider objects under Section 3 of the Planning and Development Act 2004, as opposed to the very limited version that has been spelled out in the interpretation section in this present bill. Another comment I would like to make, and the Honourable Minister has touched on this, is, we are talking about the advancement of the profession, and whether in referring to the profession as town planners, the word town planners, we are not in a Mauritian context sending out the message to the population that our planners do planning only in towns. The Honourable Minister has touched on this. So my suggestion is, maybe the time has come to call our planners land planners instead of town planners per se, so as to get rid of this biased perception. Matter of fact, I would even suggest that we call the council that would be set up following the passing of this bill as the Council of Registered Professional Land Planners, instead of a mere Town Planners Council as the bill proposes to call it. But this is just a suggestion. Mr. Speaker, sir, the most powerful 2 tools that the planners have at their disposal are the planning policy guidelines and the national development strategy. a national land use strategy which provides for the basis for the long-term land use planning and which is currently being reviewed and touted to be called National Land Development Strategy upon finalization. Now, I had asked parliamentary questions on this, on the progress thereof, in PQB 775 of 2020, during which the House took note that it was nearly 3 years ago from now, that is on 7 June 2019, that a team of consultants was tasked with the review of the National Development Strategy of 2003, 19 years old today, a document that ought to be revised every 10 years. I would like to ask the Honourable Minister, Acting Prime Minister today, about the progress on the finalization of the strategy and whether the drafting of an action plan or program for implementation that he had mentioned as being the last 2 steps in the 9 steps process have actually begun or have they been completed, and whether the issues in connection with climate change that I had canvassed have been taken on board. I don't quite think the document is public yet. Maybe I've missed it out, but I don't think it is public yet. Climate change and flash floods, more and more a killer, have been the concern of everybody, and it has to take on board the National Flood Management Programme and also l'épineux problématique des bassins versants. Un bassin versant, Monsieur le Président, est un territoire qui draine l'ensemble de ses eaux vers un exutoire commun, un cours d'eau, la mer, ou même nos réservoirs d'eau sur lesquels nous dépendons pour notre approvisionnement en eau potable. Le bassin versant constitue le territoire pertinent pour traiter les causes en amont d'un problème lié aux eaux de surface, surtout la transportation de la pollution de notre territoire, puisqu'il est connu que nos agriculteurs utilisent beaucoup d'engrais chimiques. Mr. Speaker, sir, the question is whether our planners, be it at central government or at the local councils, are up to date on these issues. In line with the provisions of Section 2E of the bill, which is about the approval, conduct, or course to be conducted, training courses, programs, lectures, seminars, or conferences, including professional development courses or programs for town planners. But I understand that there has been a reduction of overseas continuous learning across the board today because of COVID-19 and the current difficult economic and financial situation. But I would wish to point out that planners must be encouraged to keep up to date by way of online courses, be it at the ministry or at the local university. One suggestion that I would like to make at this stage is for the planners to set up an institution of planners of Mauritius, just like the Institution of Engineers of Mauritius, which was created on 26 February 1948 by a group of 12 engineers who called it at the material time the Engineers Association of Mauritius. Pour la petite histoire, it had as first president Mr. Raymond Béranger, grandfather of the Honorable Joanna Béranger, also engineer. Today, the Institution of Engineers of Mauritius has a professional training center which was registered as a training institution by the Mauritius Qualification Authority in March 2015. I remember it well because at the material time I was a board member of the Institution of Engineers of Mauritius. The center is the training arm of IEM, and its aim is to meet the continuous professional development needs of engineers. So I do believe that planners can certainly replicate such a model. I must tell the House that as a civil engineer of the Ministry of Public Infrastructure, I was seconded for duty to the Ministry of Housing and Lands between 2005 and 2008 on request of the Ministry of Housing and Lands to be the officer in charge of the housing unit. There at the Ministry, I must state that I'm the officer who made the presentation on the LAVIMS project, the planners are here, they will know, to a committee of the Cabinet of Ministers, and following which this presentation, the committee chaired by Dr. Navin Ramgoolam decided to fast-track the project. This is how Mauritius today has a national digitalized cadastre, which I'm given to understand is not working at full potential if I compare it with what was presented by this government, because after taking over from the previous government, at the 2016 World Bank Conference on Land and Poverty at the World Bank in Washington, D.C. in March 2016. I quote from the document, it is available online. We describe how LAVIMS could form the basis for a national spatial data infrastructure, then the NSDI. An operational NSDI would contain up-to-date and accurate spatial data on land, infrastructure, utilities, and the environment, and would support government in dealing with issues such as planning, very important word, environmental degradation, also an important word, and flooding, alternative uses of agricultural land, deforestation, and mineral extraction. A range of e-government services could be based upon such an infrastructure, creating increased opportunities and access to information for citizens. End of quotation. The question is, do we have all these facilities today available to the citizens? Mr. Speaker, sir, times have changed since the days of the first town planner of the country, Ms. Mackins. Matter of fact, in those colonial days, planning was not an arduous task because there was no development pressure, no teeming population pressure, no multiple development strategy to cope with, no climate change issues to cope with. Climate change has made this a new and very dangerous phenomenon, and all professionals, be it planners, engineers, hydrologists, and even meteorologists, must be trained and their knowledge enhanced so that they can adapt their mathematical models thereto. Mr. Speaker, sir, in addition to training, I now wish to touch on part 6 of the bill on discipline. We are now in a very delicate aspect of the professionalization of the domain, and here I would like to say one thing, that is, a mistake repeated more than once is actually a decision. Mr. Speaker, sir, for too long and so many occasions, so much of development have been allowed on vulnerable areas without planners drawing the alarm bell, and the consequences of this is that a large number of inundations have followed heavy rainfall events. For planners to accede to the status of professionals and in line with the provision of Section 27, I would like to raise the following issues that planners ought to revisit and avoid. Number one, allowing development to take place along drainage channels or to cover up almost 100% of the development plots. Number two, not respecting proper setbacks or plot coverage to allow percolation of stormwater, thus allowing excess water to seep through soils and reduce the occurrence of severe flooding conditions. Number three, not requiring and not maintaining proper setbacks from other neighboring properties and from the street so as to allow for sunlight to penetrate and reduce invasion of privacy of other neighbors, and to allow for emergency vehicles such as fire and ambulance to come in and allow people and property to be rescued whenever there is an emergency, which is required but actually not quite respected all the time. Number four, accepting the practice of signature de complaisance from architects in lieu of proper design by professional architects. Number five, allowing developers to fool their way through with 40% ground coverage at ground level, thus satisfying the 60% open ground level required in applications for building and land use permits, when in fact excavation of the ground level occupy 100% of the land and not just 40%. In many cases, the plots are made to carry basements that could even be more than one level, as well as all the services. So as whilst the ground level can show 40% built up, practically the whole of the land has become impermeable to water percolation, leaving the rest of those neighborhoods, especially in coastal areas, open to flooding during future cyclones and rainfall events. all the more that there are no drains in our coastal areas. Number 6, laxism in the imposition and to exert greater vigilance in respect for the 30-meter distance from the high water mark in the context of the climate change, which with the predicted increase in sea level rise as well as more extreme flood events, which brings about more receding coastlines. Matter of fact, we were talking about yesterday with my colleague, Honorable Dr. Boulel, has the time not come to revisit the level of the high water mark, which would have become higher now because of sea level rise? Number 7, avoid and take sanctions on local authority planners who do not refer all the compliant developments to the Land Drainage Authority. I hope that with the professionalization of the planning domain in this bill, that this bill seeks to achieve, the integrity and maintenance of professional standards will be enhanced and will make Mauritius a good place to live, work and play. A place where tourists, Minister of Land Use Planning is also Minister of Tourism, a place where tourists will rush to come, not only because of its people are welcoming, but the beaches and other sites are safe and are the best looking in the world. The picture will not stay the same unless there is a concerted effort from the planner community around the island to ensure that it stays the same, new applications are professionally screened, and to sound the alarm bell when applications for building and land use permits hide more information than they reveal. Mr. Speaker, sir, again, in the same spirit of Section 27 and Section 2B of the bill, I would like to touch upon 3 current issues. Number 1, what is happening in the case of the proposed construction of villas as part of the so-called Roche-Noir Smart City is worrisome. There are pressing environmental concerns of site drainage and the preservation of wetland and its related flora and fauna. I hope the Minister of Environment will pay heed to the comments that his ministry will be receiving as part of the EIA process, closing, if I'm not too sure, in about 1 to 2 weeks' time. What happened in the case of the Assemblee Park that the DPM is constructing in Plaine Maillan on alleged wetlands and which has caused inundation of several houses in the first weekend of April 2022 is unacceptable. The Honourable Minister Hari Ram has just mentioned this afternoon that construction has been done on existing drainage network and that no necessary follow-up have been done by the planners and the officers of the District Council after the issue of the building and land use permit. This is unacceptable. And since we are in the region of Plaine Maillan, allow me to touch on the Eastern Highway project, which was the subject of a parliamentary question of mine today, B422, but which was not reached, unfortunately. Mr. Speaker, what I ask for in this question is very simple. The alignment, the feasibility study, and the source of financing. Now, let me start with the alignment, which is the concern of a planner, be it planner of the Ministry of Housing and Land or local authority planner.
Manage your time, 10 minutes left.
Yes, I will finish. Which planner, and I'm not referring here to the Road Development Authority, the Road Development Authority has become the real planner today in this country, the amount of roads that they are building. Which planner has deemed it possible for a feasible alignment without passing through the Vallée de Fernet? Because the House will recall that when the government changed in 2005, the contract for the construction of this road was already awarded, but because ecologists have sounded the alarm bell on the Vallée de Fernet, Dr. Navin Ramgoolam had even gone to the extent of trying to find out alternative alignments, but it was not possible. And the contract has to be terminated, albeit paying damages. And this is how Maurice Durab started with Professor Joël de René, in the spirit of the preservation of the Vallée de Fernet. So I really want to know which planner has deemed it okay to go ahead with this road. I really would want to know, because the question did not come, but unfortunately. Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, I would like to before ending, I'm not going to take too long of your time, before ending, before concluding, I would like to speak about COVID-19, which has also brought more challenges for town planners than you imagine. Many other professionals have to play a lead role in trying to ensure that the world that is planned for the future is increasingly safe from the ready invasion of COVID-19 and its constantly muting variants. Planning of the Ministry of Housing and Land Use Planning have been strangely silent on post-COVID-19 planning. We do not seem to have heard from them on how planning parameters should be upgraded so as to reduce propagation of the virus through the relative proximity allowed by our existing laws and planning policy guidelines. As you are all aware, Mr. Speaker, sir, the minimum distance allowed between buildings, subject to other conditions, is no more than 900 millimeters, less than 1 meter. In fact, in my own constituency, I've noticed distance between houses of less than 1 meter, which is COVID social safe distancing. Furthermore, flat development for different family units, one on top of the other, is being favored. Bearing in mind that respiratory droplets from an infected person can be easily transmitted from one person to another by a mere sneeze, is it not time for the planners of the Ministry of Housing and Land Use Planning to lead a thinking process on the revision of certain planning norms along with their colleagues in other fields in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, I question. I am glad that in reply to my parliamentary question last year regarding provision that is being made in social housing for people of my constituency, living in Vallée-Pitot, Trongbar, Wardcat, and Plainvert, the Honourable Minister of Housing has stated that 600 housing units will be made available for the inhabitants and that 2 new additional sites at Belle Village and Arsenal are being catered for over and above. This will go a long way in alleviating the pressure in demand and will also reduce the pressure on physical land space in an already very heavy built-up area and the consequential alleviation of pressure that would have otherwise entailed on the existing overburdened public utility networks, recreational and parking facilities. To end, therefore, Mr. Speaker, sir, in the light of my intervention, I am in favour of a professional Land Planners Council bill to provide for better, more transparent and more disciplined town planning in Mauritius, one that will work in favour of the public interest, the interest of the present and future generations, and not in favour of those who seek to cut corners around regulations and allow unconscionable developers to make a fast buck, irrespective of the social and environmental cost upon our countrymen, including flooding and destruction of our environment on an incremental basis. I thank you for your attention.
Honourable Chakoué, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, I wish to thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my views on the Town Planners Council Bill. First of all, I wish to reassure the previous orator, Honourable Osman Mohamed, that we are a serious government and that everything that is being done is for the benefit of the population. And by bringing this bill to the House, the aim is to enhance the profession. As the acting Prime Minister pointed out, there is unanimity among the profession for this bill. But as usual, the honourable member crie au feu, juste pour mettre des doutes dans la population. Mr. Speaker, sir, at the very outset, I wish to congratulate the acting Prime Minister, Honourable Stephen Obigadou, for bringing to the House the Town Planners Council Bill. The Town Planners Council Bill 2021 comes at the right time to bolster the engagement of our government in its infrastructural development agenda, a benchmark of sustained domestic progress. Mr. Speaker, sir, the regulation disposition of the bill needs to be consequently underlined, since it provides for the establishment of a Town Planners Council of Mauritius, which seeks to exert the requisite control and monitoring of the profession of town planners. It also provides for the necessary code and nomenclature of practice and discipline in a bid to empower the art and field of town planning so that it meets our national needs. Mr. Speaker, sir, with the advent of demographics, market competitivity, and a reorientation towards the quality of life and livelihood, the agency of town planning in Mauritius has become more fundamental and critical than ever. The pace at which this present government, under the Prime Ministership of Honorable Pravin Kumar Jatnat, catalyzes on infrastructural development priorities since we took the helm of the country highlights the necessity to create the right preconditions in ensuring that the dynamism of our socio-economic enterprise, the very condition of living of our citizens, and the proper utilization of resources are tangibly safeguarded through the purview of the Council. Mr. Speaker, sir, as such, town planning is a vital attribute in efficiently mapping out the expansion of commercial, administrative, and residential spaces and helping communities to grow in perfect synergy. The Council's importance cannot be undermined, especially taking into account that infrastructure should also stand strong in the face of unexpected adversity through intelligent design, the prospect of disasters. Mr. Speaker, sir, in the exercise of its authority as a body corporate, the Council will also establish the need to equate employment with accommodating and implementing rules-based provision, regulations in order to ensure that concepts, management, distribution, and utilization of public assets are optimally and rigorously adhered to. Instituting a legal framework with sanctionary powers to better support the profession of town planning is paramount. People need to be safe and able to live in secure environment. Mr. Speaker, sir, in its latest report, the Department of Economic and Social Affairs of the United Nations underscored that sustainable, structured, and integrated country planning is key to meet the ever-increasing demands of urbanization and urban migration, energy utilization, public expenditure, transportation, employment, and housing. Rightly so, the bill espouses those precepts and brings forward, through the Town Planners Council Bill, a much-needed organizational system that will pave the way for greater and enhanced transparency, accountability, and reliability, as well as setting the seal on the domain urban planning. Mr. Speaker, sir, to conclude, I wish to congratulate once again the Honorable Acting Prime Minister for bringing to the House the Town Planner Council Bill, which will definitely enhance the profession of town planners in Mauritius. I thank you for your attention.
You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. At the very outset, allow me to congratulate the Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Housing and Land Use Planning, and Minister of Tourism for having introduced this important legislation. We are today debating a bill of utmost importance at a time where the world is facing serious consequences due to climate change. Mauritius, being a small island country, is not spared. The world has already begun to experience global warming and rising sea levels, which represent an existential challenge which will cause tremendous damage and lead to massive displacement of people. Mauritius has had an increase of 1.39 degrees Celsius of average temperature, decrease of average annual rainfall by 104 millimeters over 70 years, and 7.7% over the last 10 years. Sea level rise at an accelerating rate of 5.6 millimeters per year for Mauritius and 9 millimeters per year for Rodrigues. Erosion of coastal lines of up to 20 meters during the last decade, and extreme weather conditions leading to flash floods. As has been witnessed, our island is prone to flash floods, especially in built-up areas. Mr. Speaker, sir, we can say that planning is a profession that builds communities, protects the environment, enhances economic values, improves the choice for where and how people live, work, and spend their leisure time. Planning is a process of making deliberate decisions to achieve desired outcomes in the use of urban space and resource. I lay emphasis on the word deliberate decision and desired outcomes, Mr. Speaker, sir, to highlight the importance of planners and also the importance of planners to act ethically within a legal framework. The importance of planners in the development of infrastructures is often overlooked for a lack of awareness on this very noble profession. My address to the House will be threefold, Mr. Speaker, sir, namely planning profession in Mauritius and some statistics thereon, the importance of this bill as a code of conduct and quality assurance, the importance of planning to face climate change impact. Firstly, Mr. Speaker, sir, the Ministry of Housing and Land Use Planning is the biggest employer for planners in Mauritius. The mission of Planning Division is to promote the planned development of the territory of Mauritius, where it will be pleasant to live and work, where business can thrive and prosper, and where the natural beauty of the country will be preserved for the enjoyment of future generations. The main objective of the division is to have a modern and dynamic town planning system that will optimize the use of Mauritius' scarce land resource, encourage and facilitate the ease of doing business and investment in Mauritius, response to new emerging planning challenges that Mauritius face as a small island developing state, meet vision of the new urban agenda adopted at the UN Conference on Housing and Sustainable Urban Development Habitat 3, 2016, and Sustainable Development Goals adopted at the UN Sustainable Development Summit 2015. The main function of the Planning Division is to prepare and review the planning instruments, including National Development Strategy, Planning Policy Guidance, and Action Area Plan, Master Plan to be used by local authorities and other institutions while granting permits and licenses. The Planning Division also contributes to the Ministry's responsibility for the management of state land through development control and grant of planning clearance on leased state land. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is interesting to note that the number of planners at the Ministry of Housing is 30, out of which 9 are women. The Chief Town Plan, the Country Planning Officer, and the 2 deputies are all women. On another note, the Chief Technical Officer of the Ministry is also a planner, and the post is currently held by the woman as well. This shows, Mr. Speaker, sir, that women are able to hold posts of responsibility efficiently. This government, under the leadership of the Honorable Prime Minister, has not missed any opportunity for women empowerment, and the history will remember that the Honorable Prime Minister made it possible for the First Lady President, Speaker of the National Assembly, and Vice Prime Minister, and so on. It should also be highlighted, Mr. Speaker, sir, that many civil servants possess a degree of town and country planning, but are not practicing as planners, many of whom are working as building inspectors. In contrast, Mr. Speaker, sir, there are some 24 planners at the local authority level, out of which there are 7 women, and there are also some 7 to 8 planners working freelance, out of which 2 are women. One enacted, Mr. Speaker, sir, the Town Planners Council Bill will impose a legal obligation on all the planners in the private sector and the public sector alike to perform within a legal framework which will bring a consistent approach to planning in Mauritius. This, Mr. Speaker, sir, will be crucial for our island, and I would explain why under the third limb. Allow me, Mr. Speaker, sir, to make reference to a recent determination of the Environment and Land Use Appeal Tribunal, namely PA and others against the Ministry of Housing and Land Use Planning, bearing reference ELAT 1976/20, whereby the tribunal invited the Morcellement Board, the local authorities, and other stakeholders to align their respective approaches to the land use of property so that there is more consistency in the application of guidelines and policies. This bill, Mr. Speaker, sir, through its various provisions, will help to bring about this consistency, which is crucial for the future of our island. The bill makes provision for disciplinary procedure to ensure that planner observes the legal frameworks, failing which they will have to face serious consequences such as suspension or deregistration. This is crucial, Mr. Speaker, sir, given that planners are called upon to exercise sound judgment in the assessment of projects from a planning perspective, and more so, Mauritius is already facing the consequences of climate change. The bill also provides for continuing professional development programs, which are essential for planners to keep abreast with new town planning technique and method of management, changes in planning law, planning guidelines and standards, or any other matter related to the profession of town planners. Mr. Speaker, sir, this will ensure that the profession of planning in Mauritius is up to the international standards. Moreover, the bill makes provision for foreign firm of town planners, which as per the definition in the bill means a body, group, company, partnership, which provides for town planning services and is under the control of a foreign town planner. And a foreign town planner means a non-citizen who is authorized by the competent authority in his country to practice town planning, or a professional member of the recognized institution of his country in the field of town planning. This is a commendable inclusion, Mr. Speaker, sir, as it will give the possibility for foreign firms to set up in Mauritius, and this will in turn generate employment for local planners. This model is tried and tested in the legal profession, Mr. Speaker, sir, and I'm convinced that this visionary approach will bring the profession of planning to the forefront and attract more young people to this field. The role of planning is crucial because shocks and natural hazards only become disasters when they interface with vulnerable people and settlement. Land use strategy, assessment decision, supporting investment should enable communities and natural environment to thrive in the changing climate. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, sir, getting town planning right is a prerequisite for human development and environmental sustainability. Decisions around zoning and land management, infrastructure and service built out are crucial for Mauritius. to be geared towards more sustainable development to face upcoming challenges. Planning should promote measures that reduce hazard exposure and vulnerability, as well as increase preparedness for the response and recovery. Planning decisions should strengthen resilience and limit the impact of disaster and the climate change on communities, the economy, and the environment by ensuring planning strategy and system are responsive to subtle and pervasive shifts in economy, social and environmental conditions, identifying and managing risk and hazard affected by climate change, including vulnerability to multiply and overlapping hazard over time, locating, building, and managing future development within acceptable level of vulnerability over long-term planning horizon. Enabling building back more resilient, ensuring buildings, property, and infrastructure are resilient to acceptable level of future exposure, ensuring that response to climate change and hazard do not erode natural values, biodiversity and conservation is strengthened, removing barriers to rapid response that do not prejudice long-term recovery and resilience. Moreover, Mr. Speaker, sir, in line with the Glasgow Agreement, Mauritius must further strengthen its effort to build resilience to climate change to curb greenhouse gas emission. Strategic planning will need to respond to increased demand for land use and activity that reduces carbon consumption by planning for transport choices to ensure communities have robust multimodal transport system in place, including infrastructure for active transportation, walking, cycling, public transit, and low-emission vehicles, planning for more attractive local destination, and effective managing of parking supply. There is a potential to reduce parking supply in accessible locations where it is practical to reduce the demand for travel and reduce transport emission. Recognizing the value of vegetation covers both in reducing heat load and carbon sequestration. At a national and regional scale, this means planning settlement pattern to use land resources more efficiently and adopting urban design principles that improve connectivity and address isolation. This bill is being implemented at a time when the Save Soil Saves the Planet awareness campaign is being identified, set around the globe by the World Food Programme of the United Nations. What a laudable initiative by the Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Housing and Land Use Planning, and the Minister of Tourism, and the government under the leadership of the Honourable Prime Minister to introduce this bill which aim at regulating the town planning sector. Mr. Speaker, sir, this bill will enhance the planning profession by providing the right legal framework, continuing professional development, and ethical standards required to face the challenges laying ahead. Let me end by saying, Mr. Speaker, sir, that this government is continuing with its vision to upgrade the lifestyle of its citizens. This bill is another step in the right direction and is evidence of visionary approach by the Honourable Prime Minister. I must say, we on this side of the House are proud that we are taking the right decision for a better Mauritius. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Honourable members, I have an announcement to make. My attention has been drawn to a press article published in Le Défi Quotidien of today under the caption, Une PQ d'Osman Mohamed modifiée. In the said article, the Honourable Member is reported to have made remarks regarding the amended version of his PQ on the Public Service Commission. In fact, the Honourable Member had a parliamentary question PQB 322 appearing on today's notice of questions is standing in his name addressed to the Honourable Prime Minister. The Honourable Member has complained that his original question as submitted to the clerk was in reference to the Public Service Commission, the Local Government Service Commission, and the Disciplined Forces Service Commission. In that regard, the attention of honorable members is drawn to the provisions of Standing Order 22-1A under the heading Contents of Questions, which provides in no uncertain terms that not more than one subject shall be referred to in any one question. In connection with his complaint, the Honorable Osman Mohammed sought support of two precedents in 2011 and 2016 respectively, whereby parliamentary questions in regard to the three mentioned commissions were admitted. Honorable members, in the light of the provisions of Standing Order 22-1A referred to above, these cases cannot be relied upon as binding precedents. It is a matter of regret that the honorable member, instead of taking the matter privately with me, in accordance with the provisions of Standing Order 21-4, chose to go to the press, thereby conveying the wrong impression that the Assembly faltered in its duty. I thank you for your attention, and I suspend the sitting for 45 minutes.